Well, okay. There's like a 10-second delay, so ignore that little bit right there. There's not going to be any sound at the very beginning, but that's all right. Anyway, looks like things are live and things are working well enough. I'm just going to kind of get everything set up. I hope it looks like the video quality is kind of how it's been in the past, which is god awful. Okay. I'm seeing, I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. We're not here for the video. And I've got good news. The good news is that ultimately this week, we don't have that much to talk about. Not to say that we don't have that much to talk about. I mean, there's still like 14 albums. But after last week, that is a significant drop. And I'm not entirely sure if that's due to me just kind of reaching a point where hold on, let me, I guess I can, no, just move myself. I want to get centered a little bit better there. It's like too far off to the side. I don't know if this has to do more with me just having reached a point, basically 10 weeks into the year now, where after consuming over 200 albums, I've just kind of started becoming a bit more picky about it. I probably listened to well over 20 albums this week, but quite a few of them I just kind of hard skip on. As always, check the Spotify playlists down at the bottom. Sometimes with albums that are kind of a miss for me, I will still try to put some tracks over there. Like always, I still try to update those playlists with some regularity. But yeah, without too much more, let's just get right into it. Just for anybody who's interested, and you can again see this in the description down below, along with links to all of the albums as well. This week we're going to be covering first the rap and hip hop genre, which I think closed us out last time. Maybe not. No, it was rock last time, I'm pretty sure. But and then from there, we will be moving on to the rock and metal. And then from there into the pop and indie. And we're actually going to end with electronica this week, which is something kind of unusual. We'll talk about that. And then I have a bonus album as well. But yeah, we'll talk about some oddities of sorts this week. So, yeah, and let me just, again, make sure that I'm going to quick hit play. Okay, that was not the song we're going to listen to. I just want to make sure that everything was going okay with that. And I'm going to click us over to here. And we're going to jump right in to our first one here. This is the Almas EP by Mraz. Yeah, I'm guessing Almas is, I might be wrong in this. The Russian word for diamond is Almaz. So it might be a play on that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really care. I didn't look into that much. Mraz has been kind of in the music scene. Not kind of. He's been in the music scene here for about a decade now. So this is not a new artist by any means. This is that dark electro-tinged R&B. There's a few guest rappers on it from time to time, which give it a harder edge. This is basically old school The Weeknd. So if you remember House of Balloons by The Weeknd, it's going to be a bit similar, but because he's been doing this for 10 years, just the sound and the production are very clean and very sharp. So we'll take a quick listen to two of the tracks here and give you a feel. So the first track is Kukla. That very mournful, almost, 100% could be early The Weeknd.
Все камни собрать, что ты легко так разбросать.
So again, not 100% House of Balloons by The Weeknd, but if you've listened to House of Balloons by The Weeknd, then you can definitely hear the influence there. And we'll give Ellie a listen too. It's got a slightly different sound, but similar.
Люди создают что-то для других людей, но почему-то кто-то хочет присвоить это себе. Кто-то говорит, что важен гендер или цвет, но судить нужно поступки те, которых у них нет. Все проходят через это, то, что называют смерть. Короли метаморфозы, выбирай жизнь или...
So that song's got a bit more of that, I guess you would maybe call it pop leaning. Ultimately, yeah, it's a nice little EP offering from Thomas Mraz, with that, like I said, darker electronic tinged R&B, with pop elements as well. So The Weeknd is a good, if you're a fan of The Weeknd, you would probably enjoy this. And there are 2 tracks here with some guest rappers that give it a bit of a harder sound. And then, yeah, the big Russian rap release of the week was 735 by Obladaet. Now, I know this is going to be like a fire record for a number of people. I probably should have put the album artwork up for the last one, but whatever. And I'm sure some older people are going to like this. Obladaet is 33, so he's been doing this also for about a decade. We're kind of reaching, I think, a stage in Russian pop or popular music, I suppose you could say, where a lot of artists that were kind of underground at this point in time, well, a decade ago, have become something of mainstays in some form or another in 2025, even in the world of TikTok and streaming services, which is an odd thing to say. But what I'll say is this. Earlier in the year, I want to say like in the 2nd or 3rd week of January, there was a massive release from the Russian rapper OG Buddha. And what I said back then, I think holds true now, because you can see there are 16 tracks on this album. It is, even though most of them are short, it's still kind of lengthy. And just like with the OG Buddha album earlier this year, I think this is an album which would have benefited from a little bit of some trimming. The first half of this album is pretty fire all the way through. And there are some good tracks in the back half too, but the back half definitely seems to drag. At least that's how it felt to me. The beats get kind of bored and repetitive. The lyrics just go on and on about like not giving a fuck. I got money. I'm the only real one in the game. Blah, 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 right? The type of stuff. It starts to drag. It starts to drag and wear in the second half. This track 14 with Enzo from the Block. Enzo from the Block is a French rapper. So that actually does add a bit of spice in the final stretch right there. But I would say it's not really enough to warrant the tracks before it. So I think had Obladaet cut this down to maybe like 12 tracks, like gotten rid of the bonus track and then cut 3 more out of there, then this would have been a really solid release. As it is, it's a bit long, I would say. I know a lot of people in the rap world here in Russia are really all hype about this because there's a lot of disses. Like, he's got a lot of beefs going on, one of them with OG Buddha, in fact. I honestly could give less than a shit about that just because Russian like rap beefs are completely idiotic. And honestly, it still doesn't change what I said because basically all of his disses are in the first half of the album. So, yeah. Still good production, and the lyrics are pretty tight. He is a talented rapper. It's just, like I said, it gets a little bit old. So, yeah, I'll give you a bit of a listen. You'll hear what I'm talking about.
Это она мне звезда, не могу опоздать. Могу лутать, не выпускать, могу не спать, искать. Могу играть и поднимать, могу ебать, взорвать. Ты можешь просто отсосать, ведь ты не дать, не взять. Дерьмо может случиться, дерьмо может поменять. Тебя могут с этим взять, ты будешь врать, вилять. Я высоко хочу тусить, чтоб не могли узнать. Я на ее устах всегда, я не могу устать. Меняю локи в сутки 3 страны.
So I would say on this track, for example, and if you don't understand Russian, you're not going to pick up on it. If you do understand Russian, if you're not really like used to listening to rap, then it's probably going to be an issue too. Lyrically, this is kind of whatever, hard pass. But, he does well over the beat, and the production is stand-up. Electronic would be probably one of the standout tracks.
Я не получаю то, что должен, недооцененный, правда так считаю. Можешь сейчас подумать, что я позер. Увидишь в жизни, скажешь, что не знал, что я так скромен. Моя мать художник, модельер, слышь, да я создан Богом. Я с детства был на дрипе, блять, с иголочки, как елки. Никогда бы не подумал, просто перееду в Лондон. Бывало я лутал копейки, но всегда работал. Хочу, чтоб у меня был сын, как продолжение Облы. А детство было трудным, в 6 классе был компьютер. И все, что я имел.
So, a little more straightforward. And honestly, the lyrics are a lot better there. I think he disses 2 people in Electronic. Also, OG Buddha, I'm almost positive. And then, obviously, number 27 in the chart, Name here, with Ice Kedr, who is a rapper I kind of discovered last year and who's actually pretty good. And yeah, this is the kind of the lead single off of it. So.
Мой каждый день проснулся в 7, но я не прыгнул в трейн. В России 10 на телеге, офер ждет ответ. Они хотят снова купить мой фейс в USDT. Хотят пошерить свой продукт со мной, хотят рецепт. Им нужен референс и только повторить паттерн. Я могу плюнуть тебе прям в лицо, и это свэг. Это почти автопилот, ко мне ща едет гэс. И этот белый ща с дерьмом, как унитаз и снег. Читаю книги больше-меньше, хочу юзать сленг. Волнуют суки с интеллектом, она даст свой хэт.
But I think you get the idea. It's got that kind of like drill trap beat throughout the whole thing. Again, good production. Rapping is proficient, but 16 tracks of it does get a bit long, a bit monotonous, and lyrically it starts to wear thin. So, but yeah, 735 by Obladaet is I would say the biggest rap release of the week. That was worth a damn. I listened to quite a few other ones that were, not worth it at all. So, that's it for rap and hip hop. And then we're on to rock and metal. We're going to start with Shamampur with the Dog Days EP. Just to put it really simply, very throwback cover artwork. I'm assuming this is drawn by somebody who did not live through this era of cell phones. But it's okay. I guess all things that are old become cool again at one point in time. This is just shoegaze with a lot more distortion, some electronic edge to it. If anybody remembers the Minneapolis group Elite Gymnastics from like 20 some years ago, which I know is a stretch here, then it's got a little bit of that. Like Elite Gymnastics meets shoegaze. Jump ahead just a little bit. So it's your traditional shoegaze sound, but the electronic elements are right there. That kind of additional wave or layer of distortion with some of those glitchy beats in the background. So yeah, if you like shoegaze, but want something a little bit different, then yeah. I know shoegaze is kind of undergoing a bit of a revival these days, but I can't say that I've heard anything specifically like what Shāmpur is doing. And for anyone who wants to know what Shāmpur means, it is if you make the kind of shashlik here in Russian, which is like Russian barbecue with the pieces of meat on a metal rod that you then place over the fire. The metal rod is the Shāmpur. So, I don't know, random little fact there. Up next, we have Fox River with the Epitaphios EP. Yeah, it's progressive metalcore. It's got mostly clean vocals, but there are a few scratchy wahs when the choruses hit. And the breakdown sections. Obviously, this is metalcore, so there's going to be breakdown sections. And when you have breakdown sections, we go into the really gruff and growly vocals. But yeah, I actually went back and checked. It's been a few weeks, almost since the end of January, I would say, since we've had any modern sounding metalcore. We actually had a old school metalcore a la Killswitch Engage a few weeks back, but this is definitely more of like the metalcore sound of the last 5 to 10 years. So this is the first time we've had anything like that since January, and it's quite good. So let me go ahead and put us up here with Sviat. The electronics, I would say, are one of the key clues that we're a more modern sounding metalcore. Not always, but. So I got the wah, that's what I was talking about, right? You get it. And then there's the clean. And then Epilog. Got a little bit of a new metal style opening. There's the growls. But then we'll have cleans. Just give it a second. Oh, not on this one. Yeah, my bad. Gotta wait a little bit. We got some falsetto in there. I suppose this is falsetto, yeah. So yeah, that's Fox River with Epitaphios, which is it's connected to like something in the church, like when somebody dies and they have like this big thing around the coffin. I don't know. It looks cool, right? Epitaphios. Anyway, metalcore, which again, like I said, we haven't had in a while. But up next we have Потвора with песни уровня жизни is the EP. Yandex has them labeled as punk. I've seen other people call this Russian rock. Honestly, this is post something. I don't know post what. Is it post punk? Maybe. Is it post indie? Maybe. Is it post punk? Possibly. Honestly, the really only punk thing about this music is its refusal to adhere to some sort of a form or definition. They play music that when you listen to it, it sounds familiar. Something rings a bell, but it's hard to say what exactly. As I was listening to this EP, Gang of Four was what I constantly was thinking of. But Gang of Four is already kind of a group, which is slippery to pin down. But yeah, regardless of how you want to label the group, the music's good. So we'll give them a listen to as well. Also, this artwork with the crumpled up beer cans. This is a, oh God, I probably should have opened this before. Give me just a second here. I'm going to go back. It's actually a kind of, the Epitaphios of War. It's actually kind of a joke. So I'm going to go ahead. So the album artwork here with all the crumpled up beer cans and this, it's actually I don't know if you want to call it a joke, but from this famous Russian painting. So yes, by Vereshchagin, the Apotheosis of War, which is actually in the Tretyakovsky Gallery here in Moscow. I love this painting. It's fantastic. And yes, a little riff on it. So again, just another fun fact. But we'll give Gori Siai, Gang of Four. Also, this is not connected to the song at all. It's good. It does a lot of Gang of Four sound there. The whole CI thing too. It's just, I don't know if it had to have been a coincidence. But there's like a huge meme right now going around the Russian internet about CI, which is like to shine. That's for another time, I suppose. But yeah, we'll give Atstiny another listen. Just. It is very post-punk, but it's not, it doesn't adhere to those standards. So yeah, that was Потвора, which basically means like a little demon monster thing. And the EP is Pесни, уровня, жизни. I think realistically, I probably could have put them in the pop and indie category. The post-punk sound is a bit more indie in my opinion, but this is where they're at. So it's fine. You get the idea. All right. Up next, I am going to, I got two albums. We're going to talk about them both in the same thing. A few weeks ago, when I was talking about some punk albums, I said that it reminded me, or two of the albums reminded me of albums that, or artists that would have been on Epitaph Records Punkorama compilations. And this is more of that. So I'm just going to start calling these Punkorama groups. Тысяча Огней here has a faster, cleaner, suburban punk sound. The lyrics are all about like how it is to be a real punk, how it is to be a true punk, right? We got like the mohawk thing going on here, which is called an Iroquois in Russian, interestingly enough. We got the green hair, we got the the sort of old post-Soviet like landscape. So right, real true punk. And then Радиопомехи with Kошачья mята, which is basically catnip. This is more of a ska punk sound. A little bit more clever, a little bit more tongue-in-cheek with their lyrics. Lyrics are about daily life, like someone having their messages left on read. The sound is fuzzier, a bit more out of the garage. If I had to choose between the two, I probably would go with Радиопомехи, but that's probably just because these guys seem to be a bit older, and maybe that's just the kind of sarcastic, cynical view on stuff. But we'll give them both a listen. So we'll start with and we'll just to get the feel. And one last one, just to get the feel here. There are times it feels a bit more like garage rock, but I'm still calling this like punk. It's got the punk vibe. So yeah, that is Радиопомехи with the album Кошачья mята. And then the other punk group is Тысяча Огней, 12 лет молчания, or 12 years of silence. And we'll give a listen to them as well so you can hear that clean punk sound, suburban punk sound. Listen to that bass. So yeah, we got the punk sound, punkorama groups. Again, they're good. Like, it's fine. It's not the type of thing I listen to much anymore, but it is nice to dabble in from time to time, which is why I appreciate these albums. And again, I know some people still very much like this. It's a sound that some people never grow out of. But yeah, that's it for rock and metal this week. It was kind of a small one. Maybe March is going to be a slow month in that regard. So moving on to pop and indie. We're going to be starting with this short album, which is appropriately called Добрый album. Добрый альбом, I suppose I should say. Добрый meaning nice or kind. So the Kind album by Fizkultura, which is physical education, PE class. This is just an album of nice, good vibes. It's all positivity and love, both in the lyrics and in the music. It's just a great album, honestly, to have here at the start of calendar spring. So... very happy. Almost to a fault. Jump ahead.
Превратились в свои кости, показали высший класс, вымерли от своей злости, в гости не ходили, не тусили, танцы не любили, нервы оголили, и в крови.
And the track Aloha. That's just a happy sound right there, that keyboard. I don't know how else to describe it.
Всем постам, по местам, вот добра вам килограмм, вот вам радости вагон, вот вам счастье стадион, бадминтон, домино, португальское вино, шведский стол, токийский дрифт, быстрый социальный лифт, I believe, I can fly, всем наш пламенный бонсай, всем улыбок за мой счет, без забот и без хлопот, вот вам рыбка из пруда, без усилий и труда, где учас потехи время, вот вам время приключений.
Ты олицетворение всех лучших настроений, всех.
If the music's not enough and if you can understand Russian, the lyrics are like, it's like a kilogram of kindness for you, a wagon of happiness, a stadium of joy, all for you, right? Badmintons, dominoes, Portuguese wine, a an all-you-can-eat buffet, Tokyo drifting, fast social lifting, right? It's just lyrics about like all positivity and good vibes. So if you're feeling down or you just want something that encapsulates the joy of early spring, the Добрый album by Fizkultura is going to be a good choice for you. But moving on, we have the album Santa Mуэрте by Bazar. And you might be thinking, what are we getting ourselves into? Is this like we got a little bit, I'm pretty sure that's the, that looks like the famous narco baron, but I can't think of it now. Anyway, this is an indie album. It's not really, it's ostensibly inspired by the sort of Mexican death cult Santa Mуэрte, but in practice what we have here are 8 indie tracks that each kind of have their own sound, although if there is perhaps something you might call a Mexican vibe to the album as a whole, because a few tracks do have something of a Mexican sound. But in general, the songs range from like what you would say is like to R&B, to something that's more bluesy, acoustic songs that are more electronic. There's a song that feels borderline mariachi, or at least like straight up Mexican. And then there's just songs that are that classic introspective indie rock sound. From the cover art, I definitely was expecting something else, but I can't say that I was disappointed by what I got. So let's give a bit of a listen to Santa Mуэрте by Bazar. The first track is Do Temnati, or Until Darkness. Got a bit of the south of the border sound.
Я не запомнил, как ты попросила не оставлять тебя никогда. Помню, весна надо мной моросила и намочила твои глаза. Смотри за стеклами окон с похмелья и в жару начнется лето. стать смолой, застынет в памяти. Уснем до темноты.
So a bit of the, like I said, south of the border side of sound. This one, Basimy в пустыне, is definitely more into that. This has got the, it's not mariachi, but it's definitely more of what we would think of as a Latin sound, I guess. Yeah, not mariachi. I'm not really sure what I was thinking when I threw that word out there, but. But now we're at indie rap.
Стали твои смыслы малопостижим. Просто расскажи мне, в котором из возможных режимов не любить тебя всю мою жизнь до самой с мокрой головой в этом виде неопровержим аргумент. Хотя пижаму надень ты. Как узлом любовь на запястье. Далеко не каждый день праздник. Далеко не каждый день хит. Но я не вполне скриптонит. Как узлом любовь на запястье. Далеко не каждый день праздник. Далеко не каждый день хит. Но я не вполне скриптонит. Знаешь, как узлом любовь на запястье. Далеко не каждый день праздник.
So we got two tracks there. Definitely have a Latin vibe to it, kind of a Russian Latin vibe, I guess. But just to let you know that I wasn't saying, or I wasn't lying when I said there's a bunch of different sounds here. Here we have Kuji, which is definitely more of that like hip hop, R&B, electronic thing going on here.
Мало волос, зато бабос есть. Музыка дворов не моё бесит. Типа ты не шкет, тихо, блин, интеллигент. Здесь что-то лечит. Здравствуйте, добрый вечер. Мой братик седой стал, братик бородой пал в муку. Это наша старость, брат, ку-ку. Мы не вечны, ладно, я ору. Седина идет мужику, как и женщине, Как и не дурное чувство юмора. Знаешь, я не думаю, что завтра будет лучше. В детстве говорили, что все к лучшему. Вряд ли они знали, как мы променяем Тютчева на Куджи. Юным ты ходил крутой, только был никто, только был никем. Юным ты ходил в кино, ты ходил как в кино, только вор в пуке. Юным ты ходил крутой.
But still, even with the like the foot stomps and the claps in the background, there is, I think, still that like Mexican kind of idea, at least the Russian understanding of that, perhaps. So yeah, the album Santa Muerte by Bazar. Nice. It's a bit of a smorgasbord of various sounds, but it is a good one. It's definitely worth your time. And then the top pick here of the indie and pop category is Hhrupko, which means fragile, by Dайте Танк. Again, another group that's been doing this for, well, probably going closer to 15 years now, but nevertheless. This is an album which, for me, was a bit of a puzzle. On the one hand, it's an all-around solid indie rock album, and that's something that's kind of clear from the first listen, but I also didn't get what all of the fuss was about, all of the hype, all the discussion online, because this came out last Friday, and there were people already last week when I was doing the live stream, like Wednesday and Thursday, people were already getting psyched about like how as soon as midnight hits on Friday, we're gonna load up Dайте Танк and we're gonna listen to this album, and they were all, so I was just like, oh shit, like this is gonna be huge, because prior to the last few years, I had only dabbled a bit in Russian music. I mean, I knew the name, I knew the group Дайте Танк. I had heard some of their songs before, but I didn't have them nailed down in any sort of way. And yeah, the lyrics are really sharp. They've got all sorts of fun little lines that stick in your head. But this is rock music. It's not bard style music a la Dylan or something like that, where the lyrics take front seat. It's even kind of hard to track the lyrics down. Here on Yandex, for example, the first track has lyrics, but then none of the other ones do. Oh no, sorry, I take that back. A few of the other ones do, but it's kind of hit or miss. It's only if you go on Genius that you can find all of them. So I guess thanks to the Genius community for that. But regardless, yeah. It kind of feels like you're just supposed to really focus in on what the lead singer is trying to say if you really want to get it. But because there was so much excitement about this whole album, after the first time through and being unimpressed by it, I decided to give it a day and then come back to it. And I did. I came back to it and I sat down and I listened to it, and things started to open up. I sat down and I actually started to listen to it, to give it my attention, and that's basically the key. Just like I said, you have to listen to what the lyricist is singing if you want to get it. It's kind of like that with the music. If you're just turning it on and letting it play in the background, like into a homogeneous sort of background noise, that's what it becomes. Not to say that the songs aren't different. They do. They vary, but not in such an extreme way that it would be something that's going to grab your attention if you're not like giving it out. But when you actually do pay attention to it, it is a very, very good album. In February, there was a group from Kazakhstan called Rasputniki who we're actually going to go to the concert. They're having their first concert in Moscow here this coming Saturday. And so we're going to go see them. But last month, when that album came out, it was also one of those where I said, this is like, it's a really good album. And it's one of those albums where it's going to require some listens, but it's that kind of extra dedication that it expects of you is going to pay off in the long term, because it's going to be an album that has a much longer and deeper impact. And even Rasputniki's album too from last month was much easier to latch onto than this one. I don't want to scare anyone away from this album because it's a very good album, and I think you'll be able to hear that when I put that out here. I just want to make it clear that this is an album which is not easy listening. It's one that you kind of have to tune into. Now, is this album of the year, which some Russian music bloggers have already made it out to be? No, definitely not. At least not for me. But is it one of the best indie rock releases of the year so far? Yeah, 100%, without a doubt. So let's give a bit of a listen here. I'm going to skip around between some tracks. So yeah, opening track, it's pretty easy to get into. Second track's also not too far off. And another one. They're all different, but if you're not, maybe it's the tempos are all kind of similar, or the way that it's mixed or something along those lines. But I feel like if you're not really paying attention, it starts to blur into another. But if you're listening, which you probably are right now, you'll feel the difference.
Опять угадала, звенит в обоих. А вокруг тишина и простор. Я пою, разжигая костер. У подножия горы пшеница колышется, как живая. И кружатся вороны, мне подпевая. Не помню, где мы взяли карту. Не знаю, как мы добрались до этих дивных мест. Не зря пунктиры.
It's not always fast. Got a little bit of a slower one here, but a bit more syncopation as well. And I gotta point out the final track has just like a great ending. Like the album ends very well. Like it's clear that they actually went into the album thinking how to put it together, which in 2025 is something you gotta like give props for. Wait, where the hell? There it is. So yeah, Хрупко by Дайте Танк, an album which I have a feeling that coming up here at the end of March, I'm going to kind of do a retrospective of the first quarter of the year. And I have a feeling that this is going to be an album that, as I give it a little bit more time to sit with me and to come back to it and revisit it, I have a feeling that this is going to be one that will probably increase in value in terms of or how good it is. But yeah, it took me a little bit of time to get into it, but I'm glad I gave it. I'm glad I gave it the time, because even just listening to it now, like kind of again coming back to some of these tracks, I understand that I kind of want to go back to it again. So, and yeah, even if you don't understand the lyrics, I think musically there is something here, which is important too for, non-Russian speakers out there, because that's who I'm assuming most of the viewing audience is. All right, and we're actually going to end with electronica as the genre. Now, we have pop music here, and we have alternative here. Okay, that actually is labeled electronica. Some of these albums aren't pure electronica. Yes, the Madanina EP by T-Fest here. T-Fest is technically like a Russian rapper, hip-hop figure, but his music has drifted more into the pop category. And I would say that with this EP right here, it is very much electronic. Now, the first track, Slovo Inostranca, is a bit of a misdirect. It's this kind of wistful indie pop. But then after that, it's just like these three fat, solid tracks of electro pop. And the pop aspect is good, but the electronic aspect kind of feels like it's front and center, and that's why I'm putting it here instead of in the pop section. Now, the final track, right, Muzika Spasla Меня, has been getting a lot of love on Yandex. It was actually like number 92 yesterday. It's already off the charts, so it's a fickle one. But I think that's just mainly because due to the text, what literally means music saved me. I think it's quite popular with like people making TikToks or VK shorts or whatever the hell it is here. But yeah, we'll give it a shot. I'm gonna play the intro, the first track, so you can understand what I mean by the misdirect. But I love the intro. I think it's a great song. It's not an intro, the first track. It's a very well written indie pop song.
Свобода, теплый вечер прям в окно. Блики на твоих глазах расскажут только об одном. Мы без ума, и я хочу в тебе тонуть. Я хочу снова поверить, что есть в этом мире песни про любовь. Дай мне свободы, поздний вечер прям в окно. От рая я не смогу добраться.
Just a very pretty song. And I was expecting more of this when, you know, I listened. And I was all ready for it. I was all ready for like a whole, not album, but a whole EP of this wistful electronic, right? But then the second track hit. And it's night and day in a lot of ways. I do not know why this is not the most popular track. It's just like, but so is it pop music? Probably technically, but it kind of feels like almost like a house style track, so yeah. This is the one that's been getting all the attention. It's a bit more pop, but the electronics are still quite not front and center, but they're still heavily there in the background. So yeah, that is the Madonnina EP by T-Fest. Is it pop music? Probably, technically, but it's very, very, very heavy in the electronics area. So, and that first track, just fantastic indie pop out of the blue. So, all right, up next, we have Myrtis Myth by Kedr Livanskiy. Now, Kedr Livanskiy is an artist from Russia who, over the last decade, has actually broken through to Western audiences. Pitchfork, for those of you who are familiar with that website, has reviewed pretty much every single one of her albums, and they all tend to be around 7.5 out of 10. So not what they would consider the best new music, but they still, you know, they still give her some love. Generally speaking, her sound in the past, when she broke through, was this darker, techno-inspired pop music. This is not that, though. The music started moving in a slightly different direction after her last album, which was co-released with her husband/producer Flatty, which is the same situation here with Myrtis Myth. What we have here is a sound closer to soft rock or ballad pop of the 1980s, early 90s. I saw a number of people online comparing it or mentioning Fleetwood Mac, Kate Bush, Phil Collins, Mylène Farmer, even Vaporwave when talking about this album. The first track, and I see all of those artists, but the first track with the quiet backing electronics and Kedr's confident and just really beautiful singing over the top of all of it, it reminded me personally of early Bjork a little bit. And that's kind of what I was gearing up for, something along the lines of Bjork. But then you get into the album a little bit. We have these trio of Anna, Night Trains, and Beast. And that comes in, and that's clearly the true sound. That's the Phil Collins 80s soft rock ballad pop, right? The Kate Bush, right? Vaporwave type stuff. There's some live instrumentation in here, and that's where more of the pop rock, easy listening sensibilities kind of take over. But there are still some moments of that old, darker, techno-inspired pop here. We'll see that on Agata Dreams and Purple Sadness. Purple Sadness is kind of an interesting one, too, because Kedr uses autotune, which is something she has not done in the past because she has a very nice singing voice, but it is utilized very well. Long story short, if you know Kedr Livanskiy and you're expecting something that, like her old music, that's not what you're going to get here. But this is a very lovely album of reflective, mythology-inspired songs that you can kind of play, and I would say just about any setting or situation. It kind of goes with everything. So I'm going to play you the first track, the one that gave me some Bjork vibes, and then we'll take a look at some other ones as well.
Священный край, поникший герой, еще юный Орфей, найди его, усталый час, закатный глаз.
I can't remember which Bjork album this reminds me of, but I can hear it. So I was expecting an album kind of like this. But then we get into Anna. And there's that ballad, pop, soft rock. You can hear the Fleetwood Mac a little bit. I'm not gonna hum it. Like again, I can hear the song. I'm just not gonna be able to sing it. You don't want to hear me sing Fleetwood Mac. And a little bit of some darker electronic there. Maybe we're getting back into the old sound. A bit, but not too much. Jump into Purple Sadness. This is the auto-tune track. So you heard her voice in the earlier tracks, right? She has a very nice voice. So you would expect, like, why would somebody need to auto-tune it? But in the context of the song, because she holds her notes so long, it doesn't sound bad. So yeah, a bit of some, and then Agatha Dreams is one that sounds most like old Kedr Livanskiy. Which, I know some people were very disappointed they did not get old Kedr Livanskiy. I probably personally would have enjoyed the album a bit more too, but I still think it's a nice, very beautiful album as is. I think you get the idea. Like, definitely got more pop sensibilities, like modern pop sensibilities in that. Is it an electronic album? I guess probably technically. Could it be an indie sort of electronic album? Yeah. But because of Kedr's, which is not her real name, I forget her real name, but we're gonna go with her album, or her artist name, Kedr Livanskiy. Because of Livanskiy's earlier works as definitely an electronic sort of artist, that's where we're going to put it here. So, yeah, it is. It's a nice album. Like I said, you can basically put it on in any sort of setting, whether it be, driving, having people over, just to, I don't know, go for a run, or like it's just a nice album. It has a lot of moods and they all work. But The final two albums here before we get to the bonus one, these are very much electronic albums. And I think this might actually be the better album of the two, but it's hard to say. We'll have to see. I think this is another one of those albums that's going to draw me. This is, I don't know if you pronounce it Sur Machina or Sur Machina, but regardless, the album is Rождение за три моря. And if you were to make a Venn diagram of lo-fi hip-hop beats with jazzy samples, lots of crate digging for obscure records, folktronica, electronic folk music, and traditional archival music of Russian peoples of the far north, the Karelia area, even places like Bashkiria, this album would be the sole inhabitant of that center section of the Venn diagram. There are obviously other elements to the sound here as well. Like I mentioned, there's a fair amount of Eastern sounds like Bashkiria, but even more Oriental sounds in terms of instrumentation. But that's a weird thing, right? So I mentioned lo-fi hip-hop beats, traditional archival music, and folktronica, electronic folk music, right? Like, how does that fit together? It sounds like it shouldn't, but this is one of the most inventive things that I've heard this year, and it's one that has a bit of something for everyone. I actually, somebody in Russian came up with a great. It's a journey on, or so a journey on the. It is a journey on which you will meet Scandinavian talharpa, which is a smychkovaya instrument. I actually don't know what that is. Northern Russian choruses, flutes, udmurtskaya wedding songs, and even ancient melodies from Anatolsky Anatolsky mountain men. And then it's all mixed up with hip hop and sort of electronics. It's very hard to describe. I'm just going to play it to you. I'm going to actually jump through a few of the songs, and I think you'll get the idea soon enough. There's the lo-fi hip-hop. There's the folk electronic. It's complicated. There's a lot going on. You can hear the ethnic, native, aboriginal instrumentation. Those weird string sounds are what you're hearing. Got the flutes. Which is the jazzy flute. It's not a traditional instrument style flute. So again, we're starting out pretty heavy in the electronics, but this is the one I believe which has the wedding song in it. Yeah. And again, we have that sort of almost archival sounding traditional instrument. But there's the hip-hop style beat. We'll give the final track a listen to. So there's a lot going on here, and I know jumping around, it's maybe even harder because it already feels so broken up as it is. But when you sit down and you actually listen to it, right, you got 11 tracks here, and they all have kind of normal run times. None of them are under 2 minutes, none of that nonsense. So it's a full-fledged album, and the way Sur Machina, the way he weaves all of this together, when you actually put the album on and just let it play all the way through, it's such a tapestry. And I do think that, again, this is going to be one of those albums where I think probably when I come back to it, I'll have a completely new view of it. Unfortunately, this is an album that I didn't really get to listen to until basically like 24 hours ago. So it's still one of those that is brewing around in my head a little bit. So that's why I said this might technically be the top pick of the week, all things considered. Dайте Tank is also very good. But I went with this album, Watch Out by Broosnica and Summer of Haze. It's actually a kind of a dual produced. I mentioned Broosnica a few weeks back. He had released an EP. It was kind of more quiet and chill type of stuff, but this is not that. This is the typical, like energetic electronic music from Broosnica that we expect. We're never going to get another Crystal Castles album, but there's enough of that energy here, and it's going to serve as a fix for anyone that needs it. We got a lot of big beat music. There's rave energy. It's just a mash of a lot of electronic styles. But yeah, Broosnica, Summer of Haze, two really good electronic musicians. They even rework each other's songs. They remix each other's songs from this own album. They bring their own songs. They make some songs together. It's really just kind of an interesting mix of the two of the artists working together or working alongside each other, because each of them bring their own sound to the mix. There are definitely some just like hands down phenomenal tracks on this thing, and I'm really hoping that this music will be playing on these long summer evenings that are pictured here, like when it's just outside the yard in the fading light, and just some of these songs playing in the background. But
Watch out for the click, cause the shit is thick as hell. But player shit, phrases shit, that's what pimpin's all about. Watch out for the click, cause the shit is thick as hell. But player shit, phrases shit, that's what pimpin's all about. Watch out for the click, cause the shit is thick as hell. But player shit, phrases shit, that's what pimpin's all about. Watch out for the click. That's what pimpin's all about. Watch out for the click, cause the
So an opening track that just builds and builds and builds, coming into some, I guess, some big stuff. We'll listen to a Broosnica track as well. We'll listen to a Summer of Haze track so we can kind of hear their different styles. There's the rave energy that I was talking about. But those echoey, haunting vocals, again, it's not Crystal Castles, but it's got that energy. But that's just like rave energy all the way through. But so that's Broosnica, and then we'll give Summer of Haze's Wasted a chance, because Summer of Haze is doing their own thing. More of the hip-hop, right, trap style beat. I wouldn't be surprised if there are funk remixes of this already. Some of these tracks at any rate. And then the triptych, the two of them together here, kind of bringing those two sounds together. Obviously the triptych is, in some senses, the centerpiece of the album, even though it is kind of the end of the album, but right, whatever. Classic hip-hop sample there. And it is a triptych, so we're going to hear the same sort of sounds again repeated. But we're getting a little bit more of the Broosnica effect here, right? So yeah, Watch Out by Broosnica and Summer of Haze. In some senses, I guess that's what I'm going with the top pick of the week. It was kind of an odd week in a lot of ways because I think Sur Machina, Sur Machina, whatever you want to say, with Хождение за три моря, or Хрупко by Дайте Танк. Both of those are also really, really good albums. And I have a feeling that they might grow on me a little bit more. But yeah, there wasn't really anything super fantastic in rock or metal or rap this week. And it was such an odd week with like major releases. Like I said, Dайте Tank took a while for me to really kind of figure out. And Sur Machina, I think, is again one of those that's going to take some time. Whereas this is an album, I just put it on and honestly was enjoying it right away. All of the songs are pretty good. No, they're all good, I would say. I mean, the remixes you might You might feel whatever about them because they're remixes, but again, they take 2 tracks which are already good off the album, and then each artist just reworks the other artist's song, which is kind of fun too in its own way because it's something that you've already heard, previously on your listen through. So yeah, and yeah, this is the first week I think of the year where I would say that the best albums were electronic albums. So it's good. It's nice. We've had, I don't know if, I'm positive we've had, now at this point in time, every single genre has had a week where they are on top. But before we finish, I got to talk about this album right here. Uznik Urala by Livanskiy Ghoul, Amanita Overlord, and Pantherina Frog. Oh, buddy. Where do I start with this one? This is a conceptual album based on pre-existing characters. Well, a pre-existing character, Žaby Valdika, who is a medieval frog adventurer who learns in this album about a legendary chalice of honey in a cave. The cave is real. In fact, the cave's name is Livanskiy Ghoul. It's a real cave in Bashkiria. And he sets out to find this legendary chalice of honey. Along the way, he encounters enemies, various challenges, and he experiences mystical otherworldly events. Concept, medieval frog adventurer looking for a chalice of honey is already kind of, it's a little far out there. But the music is a genre that almost doesn't even make sense. It is dungeon synth folk chanson. Dungeon synth, if you don't know, is lo-fi synthesizer music that's supposed to evoke a dark, old school, almost black metal D&D atmosphere. It's very, very low quality, typically. Folk chanson is the two of them together. Folk music and chanson, which is that kind of singer-songwriter, bard style. I'm just going to play it, and you'll get the idea. So this is more of the folk chanson. So that's the folk chanson song. This is the dungeon synth sound, if you're not familiar with it. Obviously, musically, this is dungeon synth. Although typically dungeon synth is even more distorted, and this is quite clear for dungeon synth. And then here we get kind of both of them together. Semi-black metal vocals as well kind of go back to the dungeon synth idea. So yeah, that's a thing. Uznik Urala by Livanskiy Ghoul, Amanita Overlord, and Panterino Frog. It's kind of enjoyable to listen to. I know it's not like a normal genre. It's not something that you would listen to repeatedly, but I kind of thought I was going to hate it, and then I definitely found myself kind of enjoying it. I wish there were lyrics because I would like to have a better idea of what's going on, because there's very clearly a story, right? There's like the idea of the untraveled trail. There's the cave, meet the cave, Leshi Frayer. Leshi is like a demon in the woods, whisper of the hallucinogenic mushroom, forest under the earth, and then honey is the final track. So like, sounds like a pretty cool story. I'd like to know what's going on, but just had to mention that because I feel like you got to know about it. So, and yeah, that's kind of it. We're through. We've it was only 14 albums this week, maybe 15, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, we've got another 2 weeks here in. Wait, what is going on with my? Okay, never mind. My stream on YouTube is like way behind. We got another 2 weeks here in March, which is good. We'll see. There are still new releases from February, but I've been largely ignoring anything from months past and just kind of keeping on ahead with the new releases. I'm almost caught up though on all the releases for March, so who knows? Maybe I'll go back and there were some releases from February that I did not get around to, which it happens. But yeah, we'll see. We got 2 weeks left for March. After which point in time, like I said, I've already started sitting down and figuring out the kind of top picks for January, February, and then when March finishes up, I'll finish it up for March, and then that way I can kind of just do everything all together. I think that'll be the easiest way of doing it instead of even doing it month by month. But yeah, I thought it was going to be less than an hour, and here we are, an hour and 25 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up here real quick. Yeah, next week, obviously, I'll be here, same time, 9 p.m. Moscow, to do the music thing again. Sunday, I'll be covering the news situation. Obviously, there's a lot to already kind of brewing, a lot to talk about with that, but we'll get to that on Sunday. And that will also be at 9 p.m. Moscow, or now 1 p.m. Central. So it's a little bit later. For now, that's just how it's going to be. Maybe when the summer starts and days are a little bit longer, my schedule is a bit different. I'll reconsider things. But everyone, have a good day. Have a good afternoon if you're in the States. If you're in Europe, Russia, enjoy the evening. And yeah, I'll either see you here next Wednesday evening, or I'll see you here on Sunday evening for the weekly news. But until then, take care of yourselves. I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.